Hey guys, in this month's Historical Fiction 101, I'm going to be sharing with you some upcoming releases for January through June of 2017. I love doing these upcoming historical fiction book releases, you guys. I love doing this video every year. I do it at the beginning of the year and then the middle of the year, and they're always my favorite videos to do because there's always just so many great new historical fiction books coming out and I want them all. So let's get going. Like I said, this is going to be historical fiction books that are coming out between January and June of 2017, and I have 20 books here. I had a hard time narrowing it down because I originally was going to do about maybe 10 to 15 books, but oh my god, there were so many good ones that I had to share them all. The first book I have is Becoming Bonnie by Jenny L. Walsh, and this will be coming out in May. And this is historical fiction about Bonnie from Bonnie and Clyde. And the premise of this book, it makes it sound as if this is going to have more to do with Bonnie's life pre-Clyde. But like Clyde will be integrated into there because the way the synopsis was saying, it was saying not much is known about Bonnie Parker's life before meeting Clyde Barrow, so that seems to be, you know, what this book is going for, trying to explore who Bonnie was pre-Clyde and kind of who she was and who she became. Next, I have Confessions of Young Nero by Margaret George, and this will be coming out in March. And this takes place in the Roman Empire, and it follows Nero, and faced with shocking betrayals from his childhood, Nero knows it's better to be cruel and feared rather than dead. And yeah, this is basically Margaret George's take on how Nero became the notorious, ruthless leader that he became in his ultimate quest for power. Next, I have Mr. Rochester by Sarah Shoemaker, and this will be released in May. And obviously, this is a retelling of Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, but told through the perspective of Mr. Rochester. So I'm definitely going to have to check this one out. I love me some Mr. Rochester, you guys. He's one of my favorite literary, like, heroes, anti-heroes, whatever you want to call Mr. Rochester. Next, I have Dreamland Burning by Jennifer Laham, and this will be released in February. And this is a young adult book with alternating perspectives, and my understanding of this book is that half of it has a historical fiction setting and the other half is a modern day setting. So in the modern day setting, it follows this girl and her family, and they discover a skeleton on their family property, and this leads to an investigation of a brutal crime going back to the race riots of the 1920s, which I'm guessing is where the historical fiction aspect is going to come into play. Next is The Patriots by Sarah Krasikov, being released in January. And this is a multi-generational story about a family in betrayal starting in the 1930s in Brooklyn and also going into post-Cold War America. And yet this has a very lengthy plot summary, so if you want to know more about this, I definitely suggest you go check out the Goodreads page. Next is Anne Boleyn, A King's Obsession by Alison Weir, being released in May. And this is book 2 in Alison Weir's Six Tudor Queens series, and this obviously focusing on Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII. Next, In the Name of the Family by Sarah Dunant, being released in March. And this takes place in 1502 Renaissance Italy, following the Borgias and Machiavelli, all that good stuff. And I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a sequel of her other book, Blood and Beauty, I believe the other book is called. There wasn't like a, you know, on Goodreads how if it's a sequel, it is say number 2 of something, number 3, and yeah, there was nothing with this book, so I don't know if this is a sequel to that other book. Next, The Tea Girl of Hummingbird Lane by Lisa C., being released in March. I was a little hesitant to put this book in this list because it says it takes place in the 1980s, and I sort of really don't consider the 1980s historical fiction just yet. I mean, it is obviously historical, you know, it takes place in the past, but I don't know, for some reason I still don't see the 80s as historical fiction material just yet. I don't know why, but I decided to include it on here because I needed some diversity for this list. But yeah, this takes place in the 1980s, and it explores the lives of a Chinese mother and her daughter who has been adopted by a wealthy American couple. Next is The Witchfinder's Sister by Beth Underdown, being released in April. This sounds super good, you guys. Taking place in 1640s England, follows Alice Hopkins, who returns to live with her brother, who has become a man of wealth and influence, and she's horrified to discover he is a ruthless hunter and killer of suspected witches. Ooh, that sounds so good. Next is Dragon Springs Road by Janie Chang, being released in January. And this takes place in 1908 Shanghai, following a girl named Xialing, who is abandoned at 7 years old. And she faces contempt from both the Chinese and the Europeans because she is a mixed breed. And as she grows older, she sets out on a search for her long-lost mother. Next is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee, being released in February. And this follows a Korean family in early 1900s after being exiled from their homeland. Next is The Lonely Hearts Hotel by Heather O'Neill, being released in February. And this takes place in the early 1900s, follows two gifted orphans who fall in love, one a piano prodigy, the other a dancer and a comedian. And together they change the face of the New York theaters with their special talents. And this book was also described as having echoes of The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. So I don't know if this book is supposed to have a bit of a fantasy element to it, because I didn't really get that from just the synopsis alone. But yeah, mentioning The Night Circus makes me think there is a magical element, so I'm not quite sure. Next is The Shadowland by Elizabeth Kostova, being released in April. And this also has alternating perspectives, half modern, half historical. In the modern setting, we have a woman who travels to Bulgaria after the death of her brother, and she comes across a story of a talented musician who was shattered by oppression. And yeah, knowing this leads to knowledge that has some sort of danger attached to it. So yeah, it sounds like half the story will follow this woman in Bulgaria, and then the second half of the story will follow whoever this musician is and his story and what leads to whatever she's on the hunt for herself, I suppose. Next, House of Names by Kom Tubin. You guys, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And that will be released in May. And this is the same guy who wrote the excellent Brooklyn. I haven't read the book yet, but I have seen the movie. I can't wait to read the book, though. But yeah, I love this premise, you guys. I definitely want to get my hands on this book. This is a retelling of the story of Clytemnestra. Clytemnestra? I might be butchering her name. Who was the wife to King Agamemnon from the Iliad. Oh my goodness. And I really love that story because that's a part of the Iliad that's not too often told, kind of once the Trojan War is over. So yeah, I can't wait to get my hands on this book. Next, I have Echo of Twilight by Judith Kinghorn, and this will be released in January. And this takes place in 1914 on the eve of World War I, and this is about a maid who strikes up an unlikely friendship with the woman she serves, and this has a very Downton Abbey-esque vibe to it. Next, The Orphans Tale by Pam Jenoff, being released in February. And I definitely gotta get my hands on this book as well. This takes place in World War II, follows a young woman who is in disgrace after she's been impregnated by a Nazi soldier in occupied Holland, and she's forced to give up the baby for adoption. Then she later goes to live above a German train station, and one day she discovers a boxcar of children being taken to a concentration camp. And she takes one of these children, and she's rescued by a circus where she learns to trapeze. This book has such a strange plot synopsis, you guys, because it's about a poor woman who gets pregnant and she falls into disgrace, and then she finds a baby, and then a circus comes into play and she becomes a trapeze artist. It's all sorts, such a crazy plot, you guys, but I love it. It sounds really, really good. Next, I gotta definitely read this one because of the author's name. I'm afraid I'm gonna butcher this name. Next, we have Stolen Beauty by Lori Lico Albanese. Hopefully I got that right. And this will be released in February. And this synopsis reminds me of The Woman in Gold that came out a couple years ago. It had Ryan Reynolds and Helen Mirren and Tatiana Maslany. I love that movie. And the premise of this book basically sounds like that movie. Taking place in World War II. And it follows a couple different stories here because it's about the creation and destruction of Gustav Klimt's most remarkable paintings. And it follows a young woman named Maria Altman who is trying to escape Nazi-occupied Austria, and she must help her family legacy survive. And yeah, I think I definitely want to pick this book up. I loved the Woman in Gold movie so freaking much. Next, I have The Women in the Castle by Jessica Shattuck, and this will be released in March, and this sounds really promising as well. This is the aftermath of World War II in a crumbling Bavarian castle, following a widow of a man who was killed after a failed assassination attempt on Hitler. And after the war, she makes it her mission to find other widows of her husband's conspirators. Next, My Last Lament by James William Brown, being released in March. And this is about a woman in post-World War II Nazi-occupied Greece who witnesses her country move away from its rural traditions. And then the last book I have here, you guys, A Bridge Across the Ocean by Susan Meisner, and this will be released in March. And this is also post-World War II historical fiction following two women, one of which is a German ballerina and the other is a daughter of a French resistance spy. And they both board the RMS Queen Mary bound for America, but only one of them will disembark. And I feel like that's almost a spoiler, because now you know one of them's not going to make it off the ship. So, that's it for all of these books, you guys. I had 20 books to get through. Sorry if this was a little rushed and hectic. I just wanted to get through them all quickly. And if you have any interest in any of these books, I highly suggest you go check out their individual Goodreads pages so you can figure out for yourself if you want to read these in the future as well. But yeah, in the comments below, any of these books that you guys are looking forward to, and what did I leave out? Did I leave out any other books that are coming out between January, June of 2017? Just let me know down below. So that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.